Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this, which is the 15th Virtual Sea Angling Forum from us guys here at the Angling Trust. My name is Stuart Singleton-White, and I am Head of Campaigns at the Angling Trust. And I'd very much like to welcome Jake Davies from the Zoological Society of London, who's going to be with us this evening to talk to us about the research work he's been doing on angel sharks. But before I pass the floor over to Jake, I'd just like to run through how we're going to run this evening so that we can give you maximum opportunities to ask Jake questions and to partake in the evening's discussion. So working with me in the background tonight is Nevin Hunter, who is driving all the technology for us, and Hannah Rudd, our Policy and Advocacy Manager, who will be moderating the questions for Jake this evening. So the way we're going to do the questions, for those of you who haven't been to one of our forums before, is that we have the chat box on the side of the presentation this evening. If you're not sure where that is, you should be able to find a little button or a little icon which looks like a speech bubble. If you click on that, you'll be able to pose any questions that arise during Jake's presentation in the chat box. When Jake's finished the presentation, Hannah will come in and will moderate those questions and ask those questions that have been placed into the chat box. At the end of that, if anybody else still has any other questions, you have the opportunity to raise your hand. And again, that can be found on the little icon of the smiley face with the raised hand. And we can open the floor to you, both in terms of opening your mic and opening your video, and you'll be able to ask the question directly to Jake yourself. We're going to split the presentation into two bits. Most of it's going to be done in the first part, where Jake is going to be talking to us about his research work on angel sharks. We'll then have the Q&A session, and then we'll briefly go back to Jake to hear a little bit about Project Shark, which is his current project that Jake will be working on at the end of the presentation. And when all that's done, we'll just come back to me to wrap up the evening and to tell you a little bit about future Angling Trust Fisheries forums that we have planned. But you're not here to listen to me tonight, you're here to listen to Jake. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jake. So Jake, I think the floor is yours.
Okay, everybody, I seem to be having a problem on my end, not being able to see Jake. I'm assuming everybody else have. Could you just confirm that in the chat box if anybody is not seeing Jake? And Jake, if you're able to hear me, if you're able to try and share your screen, that would be good. Yeah. Okay, Jake, can you hear me at the moment? If you're able to use a chat box, could you perhaps use that yourself? Otherwise, I'll try and give you a call. So apologies, everybody. It worked like a dream, as we always meet before the meeting. So can't really understand why it's not working at the moment, but we'll give this a go.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for Jake and waiting to find out what's going on, perhaps I'll do a little bit of sort of forthcoming news and business for you while we try and establish what's going on. So for those of you who are interested in future programs, this time next week, the 9th of December, we're having another recreational sea angling forum. We don't normally have them so close together, but this year we are just for December. And the reason for that is that next week we have Kieran Hyder from CFAS and Adam Brown from a consultancy and research body called Substance, who will be talking to us about.
Okay, I should see you coming in then, mate.
Sorry, no, who will be talking to us about the Sea Angling Diary. The Angling Trust is now a supporter of the Sea Angling Diary project, and it is a great way that as recreational sea anglers, we can contribute data and increase our understanding of fish stocks and fishery management in our coastal waters, which it's going to be particularly important going forward with reference to future fisheries management plans. Because as I'm sure many of you know, as part of the Fisheries Act, certainly in England, recreational sea angling is now considered a legitimate stakeholder in terms of future fisheries management plans and strategies, and therefore, our needs, our priorities need to be considered as part of that process. So the ability to collect data is going to be hugely significant in us making the case for greater representation, greater management measures, greater sort of access to fishing for us as sea anglers. And then finally, as a plug, I don't know, Nevin, if we're ready for Jake yet, but if not, as another plug, if you want to keep up to date with our news, with what we're doing at the Angling Trust, as well as these sea angling forums, do please visit our website, which will always keep you up to date with news and things that are happening both in sea angling but across our campaigning and advocacy work. And also there you can sign up if you're not already signed up. You can sign up to our sea angling newsletter, which we issue every month, and that is a great way of keeping up to date with our news, with what's going on in the world of sea angling, with what we're doing at the Angling Trust. So I see Jake's back now. So hopefully that's all sorted, Jake, and I'll hand the floor over to you. So here's Jake, everybody.
Evening. Apologies for that. The computer decided to crash right at the wrong time. But thank you all for joining, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And yeah, I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully this works. It's right if someone can confirm.
Yep.
That you can see it all.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Jake Davies. I'm the project coordinator for Angel Shark Project Wales, and I'm based in North Wales on the Llŷn Peninsula. And a quick background about Angel Shark Project Wales is the Angel Shark family has kind of grown a lot over the years, with it initially starting off in the Canary Islands, which is a unique stronghold for angel sharks in the Northeast Atlantic and Mediterranean. And this started a good 7 years ago, and it's just grown since, because that is the main area for angel sharks in the Northeast Atlantic. And angel sharks are found throughout the Northeast Atlantic and into the Mediterranean, where over the years their population has declined in terms of their range has declined. So they're only really found in strongholds in the Canaries, but then pockets around the Mediterranean and around the UK, in Wales and Ireland too. So as the family almost has grown, so there's projects in Libya, Greece, and then there's us in Wales, which has been an exciting project. We started back in 2018, and the project's led by Zoological Society of London and Natural Resources Wales. Let's go. So for the team, there's a core team of us of 3, where Joanna Barker from the Zoological Society of London is the project lead and also the co-founder of the Canary Island Angel Shark Project too. Then there's Ben Ray, who is the project advisor, and he's a marine ecologist that works for Natural Resources Wales. And then myself, who sits in between the two organisations as the project coordinator, where I spend a lot of my time on the ground with communities and working closely with fishers across Wales. And then Nick Dunn is a PhD student, and he's helped with some elements of the work and some of the really exciting research work that we've been doing with environmental DNA, which I'll definitely be giving a more of an update later on. And then we have a unique fifth member of the team who Ben is holding here, which is a 3D printed life-sized angel shark, who has also been to visit the Environment Minister in Welsh Government 2 years ago. But she's really a powerful tool for us in terms of engagement, and when we go to events and things, just to show people what an angel shark looks like and what makes them such a unique shark species.
Jake, can I just come in there very quickly just to say we're seeing the slide you're on, but also the next slide as well. You may want to change the picture shape.
Yeah, I wonder. Let's go that way around. That better?
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, that was way around. No, glad it worked. Thanks for letting me know. So then the aim of, move this out of the way, Angel Shark Project Wales was to safeguard and better understand angel sharks in Wales through working with fishers, coastal community, and using heritage, education and research. So it's a very multidisciplinary project to better understand angel sharks off the Welsh coast. So initially the project started back in 2017 as a little pilot project, where we kind of just scoped out, because we knew angel sharks were present and they've always been present off the Welsh coast. So as part of my summer, I went around speaking to fishermen that I grew up with here on the Llyn Peninsula, whether they'd caught or heard of an angel shark, and we collected data that way. Where then in 2018, the project launched officially through the Heritage Lottery Fund and Welsh Government, where we then set up the first phase of Angel Shark Project Wales, which was aiming to just gather information with coastal communities, closely working with fishers, and through historic type events. And they helped us really gather a lot more information in terms of memories and photos and historical context of angel sharks to better understand what they were, their ecology, and also their distribution, and what the people thought about them in the past, because there's a lot of exciting stories that were uncovered through that historical research. And then towards the end of that project, in 2020, we brought the whole findings together to launch the Angel Shark Wales Action Plan, which was then launched last August. And this sets out a 5-year plan to try and fill in the gaps of angel sharks and where we need to focus the understanding and help better understand the angel sharks, with the vision of a thriving population of angel sharks in Wales. Because of COVID, it was supposed to be held in person, but unfortunately we had to hold it over a series of workshops online. But basically it has 5 different categories, and under each goal, there's a few objectives there and how we're going to reach that vision overall. And so far today, we've completed 2, and we have 22 actions in progress. But it's not just by the Angel Shark Project team. It's worked with a range of organisations and NGOs and government organisations too, to come up with this action plan, as well as universities, because there's a lot of research questions, because we actually know very little about the species off the Welsh coast. So there's a lot of evidence gap that we need to work. And it's not just Wales either, because we don't know much about their movements, which is something we're working on. It's about working in that wider region too, and where they go, or if they stay in Wales throughout the whole time. So for Angel Shark Project Wales, phase 2 is what we called it, which ran from March last year to November this year, which led on from the first part of Angel Shark Project Wales. There were 6 key areas of the project, which was continuing the very close working relationship with fishers across Wales, with all the sectors, recreational, charter boat and commercial, because without them sharing information about angel sharks, we know very little about them. And it's great that when one is accidentally caught off the Welsh coast, that network is there, and they provide the information about that capture, because each one is like gold dust, because they are incredibly difficult to come across. The second was carrying out a systematic eDNA study, which is environmental DNA, which is a very unique study, and it's in its early days of our scientific research into it. It's just taking water samples to detect angel sharks or any species that you want to because each animal in the marine world secretes some kind of, in any secretions they do, there is DNA in there, so we can pick that up from a water sample. The third was develop an angel shark survey and tagging methodology, which no one had done before. And many thought it was impossible to go out there specifically to go and tag an angel shark, only because there's very few records over the years of the species off the Welsh coast. Then the fourth was publish the results that we've been gathering over the 4 years as a scientific manuscript and bring it together. And this is one of the key parts that helped deliver towards the action plan. 5 then was the history of angels materials. A lot of the work has been looking at angel sharks historically and the heritage of them off the Welsh coast, and then engaging the future generations through sharing this content with them, especially through schools with the ebook that we created. And 6, overall, using angel sharks as a flagship species in Wales for the underwater environment, because many are quite interested to find more about this unique shark species, and it engages them to go and discover more about the underwater world off the Welsh coast. So as far as my role, I mentioned that I work quite closely with fishers across Wales, spend quite many hours out in cafes and bars just talking about angel sharks and Welsh marine life in general, because as a diver I spend a lot of my time underwater, so we get into a conversation quite often about angel sharks 10% of the time, 90% of the time, everything else involved with the sea, because it's just an amazing wealth of knowledge. Myself, I come from a fishing family, so my dad's also been part of the some of the survey work we've been doing, where we sit down and have a chat about fishing in Wales, memories of any unique shark species caught, if they've caught an angel shark, memory of catching angel sharks, and that's through running a timeline exercise or a mapping exercise of areas that we used to fish. Unfortunately for me, my dad didn't ever catch an angel shark, but all his friends seem to have caught them in the past, which is quite an interesting way. So overall, with 73 fishers from recreational, charter and commercial providing angel shark records to us, and that's a total of 97% of all our records that have come from fishers. So without the help of fishers, we wouldn't know very little about the species. So we're grateful for every single record that is shared. And again, without it, it was just amazing to hear the stories as well that's along with these records. Just been hugely grateful. And then moving on, we then took a lot of thought about how we're going to run a historical part and bringing in new records this way. So we did a very unique way of doing it is an angel shark history roadshow, where we ran 5 roadshows across Wales, bringing angel sharks to communities in museums in some communities, or the National Library of Wales was another one we ran into, and provided the people the opportunity to come in and share their memories or artifacts of angel sharks off the Welsh coast. And to launch that, we did a press release which actually went global, reaching 40 million people, where we had people from news outlets in Australia and America calling us to find out more about it, because they thought it was such a unique way of finding more about these species. So overall, we had 497 people attend, along with 135 new records, and these included some photos such as this one down here from Swansea Pier from Graham, who's in the photograph above there with us, of his capture of an angel shark. But at the time, he didn't know what an angel shark was, and he took it into Swansea to try and get it identified. But it was only after seeing that news report that he realised how special his capture really was. So he brought in the photo and the newspaper cutout himself to the roadshow in Swansea to us, which was an amazing opportunity. For him to learn more about the species that he'd caught, but also for him then to provide and share some more information about angel sharks off the Welsh coast. And yeah, it's hugely appreciated when he brought that in. And following the roadshows, we gathered a group of citizen scientists together, of which some of them came to the roadshows themselves and asked if there was any volunteering opportunities. And their role was to go through museums, archives and libraries to see if they could find out some sources of information about angel sharks. Because prior to this, I had a quick look online and I came across a few newspaper articles. So we thought it'd be really exciting to see what we could do with a group of people. And it definitely showed that it was a really effective way of gathering a lot of information, not just the single records that provide useful information like size and weight and pictures, but also a lot of more contextual information about angel sharks that we didn't know before, of which we knew angel sharks traditionally were known as monkfish. That was something that we always knew. But actually through this part, we discovered that angel sharks actually have a lot more names, also kind of depending where you were situated in Wales, as well as the wider UK. So they came as puppyfish, fiddlefish, other names that referred from fishes are banjo fish. And they varied, and Kingston was one of those ones that were found more in Essex way, whereas monkfish and banjofish and fiddlefish was more in the Welsh side of it. So it was really interesting to find that part of it. Along with that, there was actually a lot of different stories about angel sharks off the Welsh coast. So one of these examples that really was quite an interesting one that no one kind of heard before until we sourced it was back in 1812, and this was a newspaper article that referred to angel sharks being a strange shark, and that one was caught and it was brought to the beach and they put a tent over it, and people then paid to go into that tent to see this shark because it was such a strange one, and then the money they'd raised went to the Red Cross. And it was just a really interesting part of history that hasn't been here before, and it was quite interesting how this shark had a community element to it too, because it was a strange species. But away from that, it also provided us with information to say that they were never really the most common species seen off the coast, because they were quite unique when the one was encountered. But then other papers referred to them as common in some of the areas in the off the coast. So they all look like they were common in some parts and less common in other parts too. And also the link to them even before time, even further back in time, almost medieval points, and also Romans used to use their skin as shield because it was so tough. So it really does go back quite a bit of time, but we've managed to do that through this historic element too. That's really exciting. And these are just a few names that were also caught, along with Melgi, which is the Welsh name for angel sharks too. But with the historic element too, we could figure out how the illustrations changed through time. So the oldest piece of information we got was from 1638, which was this drawing of what was known as an angel shark or monkfish back then. And because they didn't have a specimen, someone kind of described it and had all this, and it didn't really have the full detail. But as time went by and people collected the specimens, the drawings significantly got better to one of the best ones here, which was a watercolor painting, which is actually held in the ZSL library in 1804 one, which is amazing detail. And then more anatomical ones then come into the 1900s and further on. So these are very detailed ones that are amazing then, just to see all this historical context for angel sharks off the coast. Turn to a few more then. But with all the records, we've now gathered over 2,274, of which this was actually over 2,000 still from fishers and then the archival research. But what it does show is there's a peak of records in the 1980s into the early 1990s. But what this doesn't show at all is the population. It doesn't show anything about that. This is just numbers of records that were seen in the past. But it can also be explained through taking the contextual information about fishing and putting a story together and how fishing effort has changed in Wales over the years. And how the different gears have changed, how the different spatial areas, fishing areas have also changed, and the target species have changed, which meant in the later years, especially later on in the 1990s, into 2000, where the Welsh fishing now is predominantly pot gear for shellfish, is less likely to capture an angel shark. And again, then fishing onto reefs for taupe, you're less likely then to pick up an angel shark because they're more likely to be found on the sand rather than these areas, and you're less likely to catch an angel shark using pots. Whereas before in the late 1970s into the early 1990s, there was a lot more tangle netting for species such as skate, where you were more likely then to pick up an angel shark. So it's bringing that information in here, which may also explain why there's less records of angel sharks in recent years, and not then saying anything about the population because we just don't know what the numbers are for the Welsh coasters. But what we do know is we're still fortunate that we do get this iconic shark species off the Welsh coast. In other places like the North Sea, only last year or 2 years ago, it's kind of being considered that it is extinct in that area. So we are really fortunate, and again, through the records, we managed to get this information, but also the information behind it is just as important as the records, because we can build up that picture of what's happened over the years. And again, bringing it all together, we're just bringing the final parts of this scientific manuscript together to provide all this information and share this information that so many people have been working on over the last few years, and so many people being so appreciative of everyone who's been involved and shared information. And this is just a thank you to everyone who has been involved with it and shared information, because without it, we wouldn't know as much as we do now about angel sharks off the Welsh coast. And this is just one big step in towards the Wales Action Plan as well. But that's just one part of the project where we work very closely with the fishers and communities off the Welsh coast. There's also some other elements, such as the environmental DNA study that we've been doing. So from August 2020 to September, from August last year to September this year, I was out every month in the Cardigan Bay taking samples of the seawater at 10 sites across the bay. As you can see, that these are the 10 sites that we're doing it. And the reason for this was we're going to be using it to answer the question whether angel sharks are found off the Welsh coast all year round, or they just seasonal visitors. By taking these samples throughout the year, we could see we could detect angel shark DNA by taking them. So a total 120 samples were taken over the 12-month period at the 10 sites, as 3 samples were taken for each. 3 samples were taken at each month for each site. And we've recently just got the results back of this study, where we actually had 24 detection of angel sharks across the site. And actually we've had site detections throughout the year too. So kind of hopefully it gives us that better understanding that they may be present off the Welsh coast all year, or there may be some kind of movement in there. But it's really exciting, but it's only early steps. Hopefully more studies can actually help us better understand whether they are here or not throughout the year. And one of these studies is the tagging study that we did earlier in the year. So under license and all the permits, we managed to get out to do some tagging for angel sharks, where we put a mini pat satellite tag on. So at the bottom corner, you can see here, it's a relatively small satellite tag. And prior to all the survey carrying out, we had to go through all the reviews, and we had to come up with the most suitable methodology to make sure that if an angel shark was captured, it was on deck for minimal time and went straight out safely, which took months of designing survey techniques. But fortunately, we were working very closely with one of the charter boats who over the years has said that if we went out with him, he would be able to catch an angel shark, because he, in the past, when it was legal to do so, he used to catch angel sharks regularly. So we went back out with him this summer, and he took us to the sites. And like he said, 3 years ago, we were out for a 12-hour survey, and we caught 1 angel shark, which we managed to successfully put a tag on. And really speedy process, tag was on and released back very safely into the water, which was incredible to think that we managed to successfully do this, because many people thought we wouldn't be able to tag angel sharks or even capture an angel shark off the Welsh coast in a targeted survey. What made it more interesting was that it was the only shark that we caught that day over a 12-hour period with 6 rods out. So it was amazing that we were able to catch one. But this tag's due to pop off in late February into early March. So we're all hopefully waiting for some exciting results to come back, because that will help us then understand whether they also do the movement. So if it's tagged off the Welsh coast, we don't know whether it's going to be found out in deeper water, or the shark may still be around the same area. So once that pops off, we'll find that information of where the GPSs end up. But also during the whole time, it collects information about depth and temperature. So that data then can be used with some modeling afterwards to see the movements of where the shark's been. It won't be in the highest scale, but it'll kind of give us a rough location of what its movements would have been to get from A to B. So that's really exciting. Hopefully it does provide some more information, but we were planning to do 3 sets of surveys, but Welsh Coast and trying to get out there in the summer was really challenging because of the weather. So hopefully in the future we can get out. But again, it's more difficult because they're protected by the Wildlife Countryside Act. A lot of license and permits that need to be required because it's illegal to target the species in the UK. And then fortunately, back in September, I do a lot of diving off the Welsh coast and filming, and at the top of my list was an angel shark. And again, it was one of those things that I personally thought was impossible. You're looking for a shark that doesn't want to be found, is critically endangered globally, a rare one in Welsh waters, and also diving in Wales is not the most easiest when the visibility is really bad. So these are the 5 things against me. But on a normal dive back in September, I was fortunate to go over some sand and saw an outline of what I thought was an angel shark. And as I got closer, it was. So yeah, it was an amazing one to film one in the UK for the first time. So I thought I'd just play this through and hopefully it runs okay. It does seem to jump a little bit. It'll give you a bit better view of what an angel shark is and what makes them such a unique shark species, because they're kind of the link between a shark, traditional sharky shark, and a ray too, and they are perfectly adapted to living on the bottom. And the way they bury themselves by flicking sand over their back and then laying still and waiting for their food to come across them, like just a small goby, and they'll, with their lightning fast strike, they'll take that no problem. But the video's not loaded the best, so if you want to see it properly, we've shared a link before and we'll share a link after to the video on YouTube so you can see the clip in more detail. But what made this even more exciting, not just the fact that it was the first time an angel shark had been filmed off the UK underwater, but was that this was only a 30 centimetre shark. They're usually born at about 26, 28 centimetres. So it's more evidence that angel sharks are breeding off the Welsh coast because it was potentially this year's young. It also had a lot of white markings on it, which also indicate that it's a very young shark. So that was really exciting to hopefully next year or over the next few years can get out and try and film an adult too, because that just get it all done that way. And then education's also been a big element of Angel Shark Project Wales. It's inspiring the future to get into research or getting to understand what's found off their own coast, because we're fortunate that there is so much amazing marine life found off the Welsh coast, and sharks are just one of them. But the sharks are kind of charismatic species; they kind of gauge a bit of interest. So what we did was we designed this ebook to 7 to 11-year-olds. And it tells the stories of angel sharks in Wales in a fun and interactive way. So it's got full of games, talks about the history of angel sharks, talks about the biology of angel sharks, and also a bit about the project and how they can get involved and go and do their own research into sharks and angel sharks specifically off the Welsh coast. And this is both in English and Welsh. So it's available for at-home teaching, but also for teachers to use in the classrooms, because there's an activity pack that goes along with it. But that's something we did earlier this year, was we adapted that pack into a team session, which was hopefully we wanted it in person, but because of COVID, we had to make it online. We called Meet the Scientist session, which we used the ebook as a base for it, but then also provided the students or pupils of these schools with the opportunity to ask us questions through a Q&A and hopefully then gauge their interest in marine life and hopefully inspire them to do their bit and hopefully to go into research or any conservation work too. But from the outcome of those, we ran 7 sessions. Over 30 schools got involved, and it's just capacity that we couldn't do them all. But all the pupils loved it. They were full of questions, and it was amazing to just see how interactive and engaged they were with the ebook itself, but also with asking questions to us when we were doing the sessions too. So hopefully we can do a few more of those, because they really did go quite well. And then the ebook we kind of turned into these display banners with another tablet for the ebook itself. So we then sent these to different locations who held the Angel Shark History Roadshows back in 2019 with us. So as a thank you to them, we wanted to provide them with some resources that they could put in these locations for people to see, and also people then can use the ebook too. So hopefully we can roll out a few more of those too, because it's another way of just showing people the project and more about angel sharks at the Welsh coast. But because it's been so unique as well over the years, it's definitely been something that the media has been quite interested into, especially because it's known globally as one of the rarest sharks in the world because of the family themselves. But in Wales, we're still fortunate to have it. So we've had quite a few opportunities with the media, from Countryfile to ITV, and also Go Fish with Will Millard was another one that we did some filming with, and talking about angel shark handling and genetic kits that we do have as well. So if anyone captures an angel shark, we've got a little genetic kit, which is basically a kitchen scourer, and you can take a sample of mucus from that, and that then gives us some DNA samples to better understand angel shark populations. So we actually did that with Countryfile earlier in the year too, as well as other newsprints and radio opportunities that we've done. But this December, there's a special Sharks with Steve Batchel UK special as part of a series he's done, which I went on talking about angel sharks and filming sharks in general off the Welsh coast. So that's something that's coming out later this month. So for now, that's the bit where I'm to the split from Angel Shark Project Wales, and we can go into some of the questions if there were any questions before I go on to the last few slides.
Hi, brilliant. Thank you so much, Jake. A really fascinating presentation with incredible work that you guys are doing there in Wales. I'd like to invite the audience to pose any questions that they may have at this stage. I can see that we're having issues again with members of the audience joining the chat. So if you have access to that and you'd like to type a message, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can also raise your hand and we can give you the relevant permissions. So I don't know whether we just want to give people a few minutes. There we go. Got some questions. So I'd like to invite Les to the stage. Give me a minute. I'll just give you the, there you go, Les, the floor is yours. You need to unmute yourself first though. Sorry, Les.
Hi there, absolutely amazing so far. Never seen one, never caught one. So the question is quite simply, why Wales? I fish an awful lot of the Mull of Galloway, very similar to Cardigan Bay. So Loose Bay is a very shallow, it's similar sort of habitat. Why Wales? Why, having fished in Cornwall and fished all over and heard reports, and it always seems to be Wales. Why Wales? And I'm sure your satellite tag is going to give us some information. I'm really excited about the results of that. And does it have a GPS tracker so you can find it rather than just a fisherman, someone finding it?
Yeah, so I'll answer the satellite one quickly first. So yeah, the satellite tag goes as soon as it hits the surface, because we can't do it. It doesn't always track it, unfortunately, because the shark's always at the bottom. So as soon as it pops off, it's got a little time, a bit of wire that will just cut off over that time. It'll come to the surface, it'll go straight to a satellite, and that will then go to someone's computer where we can access the data. That way means we get data from it. However, if we were to retrieve the tag itself from the rough location the GPS is given, we can get all the data from the tag, so that'd be even more valuable. But luckily, once it hits the surface, it'll transmit that data to us straight away. But for the question with why Wales is quite an interesting one that we always ask ourselves quite often. And with the project, because it's not just a Welsh-based one, and at the end of the day, it opens the floor to anyone who has any sightings over the UK to get in contact and share their sightings. We've actually had records from around the UK. So we've had the English Channel quite a few times. Even last year, I think we had 2 from the English Channel itself. But nowhere then closer along that coast, which is quite interesting. But historically, the south coast in Cornwall had a lot of angel shark records. The Plymouth area really was at one time quite a popular location for angel sharks. I'm talking probably more back in the 60s, 70s, and then from onwards, the number of records hasn't been as high, or there haven't been that many records even in recent years along the coast, which is quite interesting because it does then bring up the question, why Wales even more? But we're fortunate that we still do get these records off the Welsh coast. There are other places like Tralee Bay and Clew Bay in the west coast of Ireland where angel sharks are, I could almost say, annually picked up at least one or two. We had a couple of, I think it was one or two 2 months ago. Again, they were from the shore actually, from the west coast of Ireland. So it is interesting why there hasn't been as many records of them along that coast in recent years. But hopefully, with things, there will be a few more, because historically there used to be a lot more.
Yes, thanks for that. And obviously, anglers will always be a great source of information for you. And I hope you keep in touch with the Angling Trust. And if this thing does pop up somewhere, you let the Angling Trust know so we can all keep our eye out for the data tag. Yeah,
no, definitely. And that's one thing as a project we like to make sure we do, is to kind of transparent and keeping updated with what's going on, because without you anglers or any commercial guys as well, everyone who's involved with it, we wouldn't have this information about angel sharks. So it's really nice to have that link and keep it going as well.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Les. Fantastic question as always. I can't see any more hands up in the audience, but we do have a few questions that have come through. So Malcolm asks, do you have an example of an angel shark egg case? But correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, they give birth to live young rather than egg cases?
So I'm going to go back here. That's how that so they're not born through egg cases like rays are, skates. Angel sharks give birth to live young, so they give birth between 7 to 22 live young at 26 to 28 centimeters roughly. So this one was, even though there's no reference in this photo at all to help, it's only 30 centimeters young, and yeah, you couldn't tell from the photo whether this would be a juvenile or an adult without a reference point on it, because they're born completely identical, which is amazing.
Cool, thank you. So just going to preface this next question by saying that we're not advocating for eating critically endangered species, but are angel sharks edible, is what Nick's asked.
So they're one of the most protected marine species in the UK because they're under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, and as well as a few European legislations. But historically, angel sharks were monkfish, and they were monkfish before anglerfish became the new monkfish, which gets quite confusing when we're talking about angel sharks and monkfish. There's still a debate around it all, but they were used as original scampi, and through the historic work as well, it's been really exciting. There are recipes out there. The French seem to have a lot of recipes for them, but there's a few people we spoke to before along the coast. A few fishermen said there used to be a little tool that used to use to make almost the scampi balls out of the tissue on the tail, because that's where most of the meat was. So it's they were edible in the past and things like that, but yeah, they're protected now, so it's not advocating to do that. But it's interesting to know that part of the history, because again, tells the story of the species and its importance to coastal communities in the UK and other regions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brilliant. Thank you. I can't see any more questions in the chat box or any hands up, so I'm going to pass back to you now, Jake. But just a reminder to the audience that if they do have any more questions, please keep those coming through, and we'll ask them after the next part of the presentation. Over to you, Jake. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is just a slightly shorter bit, but what I want to do is provide an update on Angel Shark Project Wales, because the funding for that project ended last month. But we're fortunately that we managed to get funding to expand on the project. So what is just launched last month as a soft launch, we haven't done a big launch yet because there's still a lot of management and admin stuff to do around it, is what we call Project Shark, which is Sharks Inspiring Action and Research with Communities. where we aim to catalyse the links between fishers, researchers, communities and governments to collaborate and safeguard elasmobranchs, shark skates and rays, and support a green recovery in Wales. So we've kind of gone from angel shark still being our core species, but because there's quite a few other species which have a lot of, which are data deficient along the Welsh coast, are also considered globally as a critically endangered species, we wanted to expand our research to those species. So as part of this project, which is quite a bit bigger than Angel Shark Project Wales, which still sits within the project itself, we're working again across Wales. We're within 2 special areas of conservation, where we're using fisher integrated research to assess some of these critical data gaps, mainly on elasmobranch species and how they use some of the habitats associated to the special areas. And there's a lot more opportunities to get involved through volunteering and marine conservation in Wales, a new appreciation of the underwater marine environment, and the next generation are inspired to connect with the marine conservation, which again brings a lot of the elements that we did with Angel Shark Project Wales, but making it bigger than before. So these are the 2 focus areas that we're doing research into. So Penllyn a Sarnau and the Carmarthen Bay Estuaries SAC down in South Wales. So like I said, Angel Shark is still one of the core key focus species in it, but we're also bringing in 3 other species, which are spurdog, stingrays and taupe, which all have data gaps for the Welsh coast and also a wider region. We know very little about these species around the UK too. And work that I've done in the past, I did a little baited remote underwater video system, or BRUV system, off the Welsh coast back in 2019 to trial it, to use it to see whether angel sharks were used. Angel sharks could be picked up using that method. What I did show through that small survey was it was a really powerful tool to use for taupe and other shark species. And then some of the deployments, which were in 4 meters of water, helped to gather information on taupe, which were circling the cameras, and also look from what it looked like were large females that come into that area. Again, working with fishers also kind of confirmed that the large females come in that early summer to potentially drop pups. And what made it exciting through this beta camera project was, back then in August, was one of the deployments that I did at night was the first time it's captured a juvenile taupe pup, which was barely 30 centimeters long, and it still had like the creases in its skin, which also coincides with the time where you start picking them up on feathers when fishing for mackerel. So it kind of worked very well, again showing that the fisher and the scientific research links really worked well together to collect that information. But again, so we're on to spurdog. Again, they were a species that were a lot more commonly found off the Welsh coast. They have quite a big heritage link, because especially in areas like the North Cairn Peninsula, back in the 80s, when there was a lot more long lining for them, and there was quite a big industry built on that species. Stingrays is another one. Kind of not very few people knew that we have stingrays off the Welsh coast, and as part of Angel Shark Project Wales, we have actually collected quite a few records of them. Quite a few boat records and shore records in the past have come from the Welsh coast, with a few recent sightings of them too. So again, it's another data deficient species, and it's through the same approach we hope to get a better understand stingrays. Like I said, taupe still have a lot of questions. There's been a lot of research into their movements all around the UK, but there's still some areas within these SACs, but also a lot outside the SACs, that are potentially really important areas for taupe. So it's better understanding those species. And through that, it's quite a lot of work packages we're doing. Again, a lot of it does come from Angel Shark Project Wales, part of it with the fisher engagement and the science side and the citizen science research, along with then the wider school engagement parts of just showing people we have the Welsh coast and how the research is better understanding all these 4 species off the coast. But at the moment, we've only done a little soft launch for this. We haven't officially launched it yet. We're still in the background doing the digital identity and hopefully the website. So hopefully once that's up and running, we'll have more of a launch and more of an engagement pattern of what the project's going to be doing over the next 18 months. So there's a lot of exciting things coming, and it's once this is all done, I'd like to share more information about this project and how everyone can get involved, or how you're going to get involved with this. But yeah, if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask them, because I'm more than happy to answer them and provide more information about the project before its bigger launch later in, probably early next year now. But these are, yeah, all the partners that are involved with both Angel Shark Project Wales and Project Shark. So it's quite a big and range of partners that are involved with it, because yeah, it's quite an exciting project and it's something slightly different. So hopefully there's some really exciting outcomes from it.
Thanks, Jake. That's brilliant. So we've had some more questions come through. Was not directly related to this particular project at the moment, but from sort of legacy questions from earlier on and more generic questions. So I'm just going to bear with me a moment. So we've had a question through from Keith, and I'm just going to provide some context for other people in the audience. So there's a lot of debate going on at the moment around the targeting recreationally of certain shark species here in the UK, with different organisations having different opinions on this. So Keith's question is, how do you manage programmes like yours when organisations like the Shark Trust seem to have an opposition for banning fishing of certain shark species when angling is often the sole source of data? Very big question, obviously. So just what's your view on that, really, without wanting to put you on the spot, really?
Yeah, no, it's a big one, but for angel sharks, that's what we've been very fortunate in a way, is they've been protected for over 12 years now, and it's the species that I couldn't target either, which is quite interesting. So if someone does catch an angel shark, for example, we've produced a set of guidelines. So it's the best practice guidelines of, if one's caught, how to safely release it, but also where to submit that information from. And again, it's just providing that information and just making sure that we've got the information out there to know if someone does capture one, which is really exciting for us, because like you said, without that information, or someone accidentally catching one, we wouldn't have this information. So it's kind of working together in the most best practice way. And that's how we've been really fortunate to have this amazing relationship with lots of fishers across Wales, is if one's caught, because it is so rare to catch one of these species. So by producing those guidelines, we know we've done our best ability that one is caught and it's put back safely.
No, absolutely. Sorry, just had to unmute myself there. No, brilliant. Thanks, Jake. So Richard asks, is the programme being launched in Pembrokeshire as well? So is it Wales wide, or is it just select areas? So
with the Project Shark, that I'm assuming, both Angel Shark Project Wales and Project Shark, there's been all Wales based the whole time. But there's just parts of it that are focused. For example, for the special area of conservation, the Penllyn or Soundnai one, we've already done the environmental DNA samples there last year. So this time around, the focus in that area is going to be using baited cameras to gather information on these species. But they're just the scientific parts. For any records of any species, that can be across all Wales, or even some cases the UK and wider. So it's just, we've just got focus areas for just the specific little work packages rather than the general overall project. So it's all Wales based.
Brilliant, thank you. So just skipping ahead slightly, just talking about, I believe you're just talking about DNA samples then. Erin's asked, said, fantastic chat, Jake, really interesting. Can I ask how you detect angel shark DNA simply from water samples?
Yeah, so it's quite a new technique. It's a technique that's actually developed at the moment way ahead in closed areas like lakes or pools or that case. In the sea, it becomes a lot more challenging. It's a lot more variables. It's a lot harsher. So one thing that's always against you in the sea then is the degradation rate of DNA. So it's for example, if an angel shark mucus or anything else that comes off it, that goes into the water column, and then we took a sample, and any of that is in the DNA sample, in that water sample, that then is filtered down and then taken to a lab and analysed for angel shark DNA. With some clever technology and some DNA barcoding, it can say yes or no whether an angel shark has been present in that area, roughly. But it's very limited in terms of what it can do. So it can only tell us if it's present or absent. It can't tell us anything about a population. It can't tell us anything about numbers of them either. But it does give us that idea whether they were present or absent in that area. But to make that technique go a bit further, what we've done over the last few months with Bangor University is done some hydrodynamic modeling, so looking at how the currents move within that sampling area of Cardigan Bay, because we know roughly that if the angel shark DNA was dropped off the angel shark on day 1, it could be in the water for 4 days. So we've used this modeling technique to see whether we can pick out exactly where this DNA may have come from and give ourselves that bit of buffer. But yeah, it's quite a really powerful technique, and hopefully it gives us a few more answers using it somewhere else in Carmarthen Bay. And we're also going to do it for the 4 other species that we're collecting data on as part of this new project.
Awesome, thank you. Really impressive technology, isn't it? So I've got, let me just have a look here. Question from Nevin. Is ZSL involved in any other projects around the UK coastline where anglers could be of assistance? Yeah,
so yeah, we're with the Angel Shark Project Wales one. There is aware of the Thames project that they were working on for a bit. There was a recent release about the State of the Thames report, which I think provides some information. But I don't know. Again, there's different departments within it all. I've been in a few meetings with it, and there is potential some Thames work there with some shark stuff there. Otherwise, yeah, Angel Shark Project Wales is a big part of the work we do.
Awesome, thank you. So I can see Sean Penford has his hand up. I'm just going to provide you with the relevant permissions, Sean. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Is that it? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one question about this. You don't feel that this thing with the monkfish, that they are just at a low point in a natural cycle of, fish from being very plentiful to being not very plentiful? Because I've sort of seen that over the years of fishing. I've seen that with other fish. When I first started years ago, there wasn't many congers around. Now they're all over the place. The same thing with thornbacks and skate. There wasn't many skate around. There was a bit more of an unusual catch. Now, you're catching them all the time. What I'm getting at is it just a natural cycle that we're at the bottom of with the monkfish at the moment?
Yes, that's an interesting one. And I'll probably go back to the skate one in a minute as well, actually. But for angel sharks, I think going back to that graph that I showed earlier, I'm putting a story to it and how things have changed in terms of gathering the records and the type of fishing that occurs off the Welsh coast. That's probably one explanation why we don't see them as much as we used to, in a way, because we don't know the numbers of the population. So actually, population could have been the exact same as it was 40 years ago off the Welsh coast to it is now. And it's using that part of trying to understand it, and doing some more tagging work and DNA work will help us better understand the numbers later on. But that's a big chunk, and that'll take a lot of years to do so. Whereas back in the 70s into the 80s and early 90s, because the skate bit off the Welsh coast there was a lot more tangle netting for skate, which means that you're more likely to pick up an angel shark. Therefore, there would have been a lot more numbers of angel sharks reported to the project. But then as skate numbers of the Welsh coast decreased, the amount of effort for skate then kind of disappeared off parts of the coast itself. So we lost the number of angel shark records, but it doesn't say that the angel sharks were still there too. And what's interesting is for lots of parts of Wales, slightly going away from angel sharks into the rays bit, is lots of angel sharks, lots of skate locations like North Coast, on the North Wales coast and down in the Bristol Channel. Skate numbers seem to be going up there, but in North Cardigan Bay itself, numbers still haven't increased to anywhere else along the coast, which was really interesting. And that's why I got to the point when we said the surveys, we were fishing in an area where historically the charter boat used to catch 60, 80 thornback skates in a day, no problem. I even actually out over an hour had to move site because there were too many. Yet that one day we went out to go and do that survey, we didn't pick up any skate, but we only picked up one angel shark, which was really interesting in terms of the biodiversity at that site too. But in terms of populations, we don't know what state they are, whether they've gone down or whether they're the same. That's going to be a challenge that we'll never know. We'll hopefully find out in a few years.
Yeah, okay.
Great, thanks for your question, Sean.
Okay, thank you.
The next question is from Ryan, and he asks, will these projects be projecting the future population sizes?
Is that projecting or predicting?
Projecting. So predicting, yeah.
So hopefully with the different tools we're kind of using to understand it, we have some kind of idea on the numbers, because at the moment there could be loads or there could be a set number. This year we've had 12, I think, numbers that were 12 caught along the Welsh coast, predominantly in the Cardigan Bay area, a couple in the Bristol Channel, and like I said, there's a couple of them in the English Channel as well as actually the middle of the Irish Sea too. But we because there is no tagging program for them, it's very difficult to do a tagging program for the species. It's really difficult to then get that actual number. One way we could do is, I mentioned that we do genetic samples. So we have this little pot that fish can have aboard, or you can have in your bags, of a pot with 3 scouring pads, and that then can be used to take a scour of mucus from the top of its pectoral fin, and that sample then could give us the DNA. And if we had enough of those, that is one way that we could understand the population and how closely related or how distantly related these populations are in a Welsh-based, but also whether they mix with other populations, i.e. if they travel to Ireland and mix with the Irish population, or they're linked with other areas too. But yeah, it's a long way of trying to get a number of individuals for Wales.
Ooh. Perfect. Okay, so we've got just coming up to the last question now. So if there's anyone in the audience that wants to get in that question before we wrap up, we've got one from Keith, and he says, where can you get these packs from?
If you drop me an email, we can sort out a pack if you'd like a pack.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, Keith, we'll get Jake's email address included in the survey email that's distributed after the forum, so everyone will have his contact details if you have any further questions or queries in terms of involvement in the project. So thank you everyone for sending through your questions. A really interesting discussion to wrap up a really fantastic presentation by Jake. So thank you for giving your time this evening. I'm going to hand over to Nevin and Stuart for some final comments. And yeah, thanks again for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks, Jake. What an absolutely fascinating project you've got going on there. Really interesting presentation this evening, and I think a really interesting discussion. So thanks very much for that, Jake. I think, as I mentioned in the slight hiatus we had at the beginning of the evening, this is our last virtual forum. Sorry, this is our second from last virtual forum of 2021. We have another one next week, same time, same place. And that's looking at the Sea Angling Diary Project and how as sea anglers we can get involved with the Diary Project, which is another citizen science data collection project that can really help us in terms of taking issues forward for representing sea angling and sea angling interests. So if you haven't registered for that yet, please do. Nevin will be sending around the details. It will be on our social media and it will be on our website. And then looking forward into 2022, we're looking to do more of these sea angling forums. The first one will be towards the end of January, on the 27th of January. And our Chief Executive, Jamie Cook, will be hosting that sea angling forum. And it will be a great opportunity for you to ask any questions you like about sea angling and about the Angling Trust to the Chief Executive, Jamie Cook. But if there's anything else you'd like to cover or you'd like us to cover in 2022, do please let us know, because obviously these forums are for you, and we're really keen to cover issues that you're interested in, and things you want to hear about. So do let us know. And one of the best ways to do that is after each of these forums, we send out a survey. It's just a simple online survey, few questions, will take you a few minutes to fill in. But do please do that, because not only will that tell us what you're interested in, it also gives us information on how we can improve these evenings, how we can improve these forums. So do please complete the survey. We've recorded this evening, so we will be posting this on our website in the coming week, and that's a great opportunity for you to look at it again, or if any of your mates or anybody you know who you think might be interested in it hasn't seen it, then it's a great opportunity for them to pop onto our website and to have a look at it. And as I mentioned again at the beginning, if you're not signed up to our Sea Angling newsletter, please sign up to it. It's a great way of hearing what's going on in the Angling Trust, what's going on in sea angling, and again, keeping in touch between ourselves and yourselves. So finally, thanks, Jake, for a really, really fascinating evening. And to everybody, have a great Christmas, and we'll see, hopefully,